Well, hi there. I wanted to talk to you guys about my 5 favorite species that I keep. We showed you guys a while back that I keep quite a large number of different species of reptiles, and that's actually been the direction I've been going for a little while. I do a lot of educational programs with reptiles. I use them in my classes. And so I've been moving in the direction of having more diversity of things because, you know, I see that that's more my reason for keeping reptiles than breeding. I have a few breeding projects that I enjoy, but other than that, I just want to have more diversity of things. But there are some things that I have really, really enjoyed. And as you know, I mean, you know, it's the whole reason we make this channel is because I put a lot of thought into the reptiles I pick. And so when I say that these 5 are probably, of the species that I currently have, the 5 that I enjoy the most, I'm saying they are totally rad. Now I should mention there are a few species, actually quite a large number of species, that I dream about, that I have researched and I would love to have, but the time is just not right for me to have them. But of the reptiles that I have, these are my 5 favorite species that I keep. These are in no particular order, by the way. First on this list is the western hognose snake. This was my very first western hognose snake. His name is Shovelface, because his face is a shovel, and the children love that. To be perfectly honest, when I first came into contact with hognose snakes, it was in Reptiles magazine as a kid, and I thought that they looked so dumb. I really did not like the look of hognose snakes at all. And then I saw my first hognose snake in person. It changed everything. They became one of my very favorite snakes. I love the look of hognose snakes. And on top of that, I love their personality so much. They've got just a huge personality. For one thing, they behave, as far as, you know, how they move and how calm they are about the world. They behave like very large snakes. But as it turns out, they're actually very small snakes. But they have that big personality in a little package. They definitely have a ton of personality. They can be sassy at times, but I've never found them to be aggressive or bitey. They just, they like to do things on their own terms. I love the wild type coloration of hognose snakes. They look like rattlesnakes, which are one of the coolest looking snakes in the world. And then they've got that just phenomenal face, which you can't beat that face. It's the most adorable and simultaneously menacing face I can imagine. And then they've got a lot of really cool color morphs. The morphs tend to be a little bit expensive, so the only one I have is my male albino twin spot. But I do love him a lot. But there's just something special about hognose snakes. And I've explained it as best I can, but I don't even feel like that does it justice. They're just made of magic, and they make you smile all the time. I love hognose snakes. Because they're small, they're actually very easy to keep. And something I was just talking about that I love about these snakes, I don't like feeding snakes. Snakes, I also don't like opening Pillsbury products, right? There's that moment you're just sort of peeling it and all of a sudden it just goes bang, and I hate that. Hate it very much. And most snakes, when you feed them, are sort of that same way. You know, they can tell they smell food, and they get fairly close, and then they just hold perfectly still, and at some point, suddenly, they just go wham! And I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy that. Hognose snakes, though, they feed like baby birds. They just come up to food, and they're just like, and I just stick it into their face. And they just swallow it down. They're just lovely. I just love them on so many levels. If I could only keep 5 species, this would definitely be one of them, and I would have buckets of hogs. As will be the case with every animal on this list, we have a full video on hognose snakes, which you should definitely check out. And like I said, it's right there, and there will also be a link to it down in the description, because you should totally have one. If you don't have one, you should have a hognose snake. They're amazing. There's no reason not to have a hognose snake. You should have 10 of them. I should have 10 of them. Send me hognose snakes. Most animals I don't want you to send me. Send me hogs. Send me all the hogs you got. The next snake on the list is the one that I have the most of by far. By like many, many times I have more of these than any other snake. And those are ball pythons. I love ball pythons. Though to be perfectly honest, I used to be nervous about ball pythons. Growing up, I had a lot of experience with colubrid snakes, and as you know, I don't like to be bitten by snakes, and I'm very, very good at reading the body language of colubrid snakes. That said, I didn't have very much experience with boas or pythons, and they strike hard and fast, and they've got big teeth compared to most colubrids, and so they made me very nervous. But one day I was at the house of a friend of mine who had a baby green tree python, and he was going to show the snake to me, and it was overwhelmingly apparent to me that that snake was going to bite him, and then it bit him. And after that, I have not been worried about being able to read boas and pythons, because they are just as conspicuous about their intentions as are colubrid snakes. And I actually, after having that experience, remembered that years and years ago, when I had my very first official job, I worked at a pet shop, and there was a ball python there, and I used to carry her around all the time, and I was like, why did I forget what a magical thing she was? She was amazing. Ball pythons are probably the easiest snake to handle in the entire world. I often call them movie snakes because, honestly, you can hold a ball python and do so many other things. I used to hold a ball python while I worked in my lab. You know, while I was working on my master's degree, I would bring a ball python with me and hang out in the lab. It's because they do not have to be the primary activity when you're handling a ball python. They just sort of hang out with you, and they're totally chill all the time. They're also, sort of like hognose snakes, they're very easy to keep. In fact, you know, I have a lot of them. It's because it's not hard to have a lot of ball pythons. In a lot of ways, it's easier to have many ball pythons than it is to have a single ball python, because the worst thing about them is they just don't eat consistently. So I thaw out about half as many feeders as I have ball pythons, and about half of them eat on a given day. And I don't end up having any feeders go to waste. It's great. Having just one ball python actually might be tougher. And they're really fun to breed, which is why I have a lot of ball pythons. I told you I'm kind of moving away from being a breeder. That's not my future, but I just enjoy ball pythons. I enjoy ball python genetics. The variation you can get in a clutch is they're just so much fun. Not to mention the fact that this one, which I didn't produce myself, I bought this one, but it does just so happen to have my initials on it, which is kind of a crazy thing. Figured it has to be mine. They're fun! And we have a full video on ball pythons. In fact, we've got a whole series of videos on ball python genetics, which I truly recommend that you check out because it's awesome! It's the whole reason you should have just a ton of ball pythons in your life. And I just wanted to take a pause in the middle of this list to say thank you to all of you that are supporting us on Patreon. Because of you, we were able to hire an editor, which makes it possible for us to produce 2 videos a week, buy new equipment, which allowed us to improve the quality of our videos, and travel to do collaborations, like the collaboration that we've already filmed with Emily from Snake Discovery, and future collaborations that we're working on. Thank you for your support. You've really done so much to build this channel. And if you're not one of our patrons on Patreon, there are some really cool perks that are just too cool not to talk about. For one thing, we release the videos a little bit early as we can, so that the people on Patreon get to see them first. Some of you have noticed. They're like, hey, this video just came out 4 seconds ago. How come there's a comment from 2 days ago? Patreon. They also get behind the scenes pictures and videos. A lot of times, almost every video actually, there's some content that's really interesting but that wasn't included in the main video, and they get access to that. It's called Patreon Extras. Also, pictures of us herping. We do little videos while we're filming and kind of give you a preview of things to come. We've also got an exclusive and somewhat secretive podcast that's only available to our patrons on Patreon. When Will, Jason, and I all get together for lunch and we talk about all kinds of rad subjects. Actually, this whole channel is the result of those lunches. So who knows what kind of cool ideas we'll talk about on there. And we would love for you to join our stinking rad fans to help this channel do more, create more, and reach more people, because we really believe in the mission of this channel. And so we thank you to all of you that support us already, and to all of you that will support us in the future. Thank you. And now back to my 5 favorite species that I keep. Next on my list of my 5 favorite species that I keep are the BCI boas, the common boas. I have always loved the way that boas look. I love their pattern. I love their red tails. I love that their face looks a lot like a wolf. They're just such beautiful snakes. And then I held one, and then it was all over. It was all over. I had to have a boa. I have all female boas because I have no interest in breeding boas. Breeding boas is harder than is breeding ball pythons, and it's also somewhat more dangerous. Sometimes males just breed themselves to death. They just don't get out of breeding mode and back into eating mode. And so I'm not really interested in breeding boas, but I love handling boas. I love showing boas to people. You know, I've got a couple of boas, and they're both females. It's like Jurassic Park when it comes to my boas. I frankly also, I don't want a breeding group of boas because the two boas that I have are kind of a handful, right? They're much more active. They're much larger, and they can be a little bit more demanding than are my ball pythons. And so I don't want to have 10 or 15 boas. 2 is plenty. And because of that, if I could only have one species of snake, I would have either tons of hognose snakes or tons of ball pythons. But if I could only have one snake, as in like one individual, it would definitely be a boa. They are great to feed. They're just notoriously good eaters. They eat like boas. Honestly, it's great to have a boa if you keep ball pythons because they tend to take care of what doesn't get eaten by your ball pythons. I very rarely, at least for this particular boa, this is Ruby, and I very rarely thaw a rat for her. She almost always gets a leftover ball python rat that they weren't interested in. My bigger boa, Ember, she often gets her own rats because she eats larger rats than my ball pythons can eat. But a boa is nice to have around. The one thing, though, that is really scary is that boas can carry some diseases that they handle a lot better than do ball pythons. And so if you have ball pythons, I'm very, very careful about bringing boas into my collection. You definitely want to quarantine them for at least a year before you expose them to your ball pythons in any way. But that is really the biggest downside to boas, in my opinion. They're just marvelous. It is the feeding and the handling, especially, of boas that has me totally sold on boas. And I'm so excited for this girl to get a lot bigger than she is now. But she's already getting really fun. I just love them. They're very special. And you should definitely check out our video on boas because this might be the ultimate pet snake. Not as fun to breed, but super fun to own. Super fun to interact with. Next on my list of my 5 favorite species to keep is the crested gecko. This is one that I actually produced myself. I've bred quite a lot of crested geckos. They're just wonderful. I mean, this is a really cool gecko that is very, very handleable. This is one, honestly, that I have not handled very much in his entire life, and he's, other than showing me a behavior I've never seen before, he's still pretty laid back about being handled. They need no special lighting, especially in terms of heat, which is fantastic. They eat few, if any, insects. They're just awesome. And my favorites are probably the ones that I have that don't have tails, because that's the biggest downside to crested geckos, is just that they could drop that tail. And sort of like I don't like snakes suddenly striking, I like it even less when a lizard's tail just suddenly pops off and then starts wiggling around. They're easy to breed, and their offspring are super variable. I've never had 2 crested geckos hatch out that look the same. And, you know, from the same parents, you can have wildly different babies, which is so much fun. That's honestly one of my favorite things. That's the reason that I picked crested geckos for this list. You know, I have a lot of reptiles that I like to interact with more than I like to interact with my crested geckos, but there is no reptile that I have that is more fun to breed than crested geckos. And they're easy to breed, and their eggs incubate at room temperature. As long as you have somewhere for the babies to go, they're just one of the best reptiles you could possibly breed. I should probably sell some. I've honestly, I had a hard time getting females at first, so I've held back a huge percentage of them that I've ever produced, and now I've got dozens of crested geckos. I should probably sell some, so I'll make them available on my Facebook page, Clint's Available Reptiles, so you can have access to crested geckos, because I shouldn't have as many as I do. But they're easy. They're so easy. They eat crested gecko diet, and they don't need special lighting. The main pain to them is just that they need some daily maintenance, and when you've got as many of them as I do, it takes some serious time. But I love crested geckos. I strongly recommend them. That's why they were on our list of top 5 reptiles for beginners, and you can check out our full video on them. That was actually the first full video we ever did, because this is one of the reptiles I recommend the highest to anyone. I have a feeling that those of you at least that follow our channel were not surprised that the common boa was on this list, but there's probably an animal that you were even more certain I would pick. And you're totally right. And that's the Argentine tegu. Much like a lot of the animals on this list, I very much misjudged tegus originally. I honestly thought of them as kind of a funny looking monitor alternative that could potentially lose its tail. And I was totally wrong. They're not even close to being that. They're really not like monitors at all. What they are is probably the ultimate pet lizard. Are they a reptile dog? Yeah, at least this is like the perfect dog for introverts. It's a big animal that you can come up and just pet and love on, and then if you don't look at him for the next 2 days, he doesn't even care. He doesn't even care. The perfect dog for introverts. The Argentine tegu. Like I said, this is, in my opinion, the ultimate pet lizard. They have really amazing, really impressive size, but actually not totally unreasonable. I mean, the enclosure that they need is large, but not like a whole room in your house or a whole floor. They're easy to feed, which is great, because I mean, they are a big animal that eats quite a bit, but the food is available mostly at your local grocery store, and that's awesome. They're actually very easy to care for if you have the space and money to take care of a tegu. And I've never encountered a more rewarding lizard. They have so much personality, so much intelligence. There's just more to discover with them all the time. He's my favorite. He's my favorite animal that I keep. Sort of like boas, I don't want a breeding colony of tegus. I would say actually to a more extreme degree than with boas. I mean, boas are big, and so they're a handful, but the enclosure for a boa is somewhat reasonable. The enclosure for a tegu is enormous, and I can't have just a ton of those in my life. But as it turns out, if I could only have one reptile, at least one reptile that I keep currently, this would be the one. It's the ultimate. And of course, we have a full video on the Argentine tegu. It's actually the most viewed single animal video we've ever produced, so you've probably seen it before, but you should watch it again, just because they're rad. And we will have links to all 5 of the videos for the animals on this list, plus some other really relevant videos to this list down in the description, in case you missed them earlier. We've also, and this is very exciting news, we've also asked Emily from Snake Discovery and Dave Kaufman to play this little game with us about the 5 favorite species that they keep. So you're going to want to stay tuned for those videos as always. So that means you should like and subscribe and click that little bell so you get a notification when those videos come out. Another piece of exciting news is that we finally, and you guys have been asking us about this for a long time, but we finally got ourselves a P.O. box, and so we will have a link to that down in the description. Not a link. We will have the address for that down in the description. Please do not send live animals without running that by us first. For one thing, I can't house every animal in the world, and second thing is, we definitely don't want an animal showing up and us not knowing about it, because who knows how long it could be there. Don't do that, okay? Don't send live animals without approval. But other than that, we would love to hear from you guys, and we'll do some live mail openings, which is another reason that we should know there's a live animal in there, because if it's a dead mail opening, that's going to be the worst video of all time. Disturbing. Just don't do that. Don't do it. And we'll create a special email address just for those of you who are thinking about sending a live animal to us, so that you can communicate that to us. And definitely say something about that in the title of that email, so that we know that it's one of those and we need to read it. And we'll have that down there also. And we hope to see you real soon. Next on my list of my 5 favorite species to keep are crested geckos. Oh, good yawn. Yeah, you're a dinosaur. Rawr. Are you trying to scare me? Never had one of you guys do that before. Yeah, are you trying to scare me? I think you might be. Are you trying to scare me? You're not vocalizing. Get a good look at the inside of your... Yeah! Are you a big scary gecko? Are you a big scary gecko? Yeah, I think you are, and I'm concerned you'll jump at my face. Would you like to eat my tie? Yeah, you were. You wanted to eat my tie. Did you like it? Was it good? Is that a good tie? You goofball. Oh, yeah, get it. You gonna get that? You want some more? You had enough. People wonder why I wear it. There you go! Rawr! Oh, yeah. You're all bluff, aren't you? Lick it. Get it. Do you like that tie? You silly goose. Alright, Druid. Nope. Never had a crested gecko do this ever. And you are not very serious about it. Because I know the tie. Y'all done? Okay. Oh. Oh. I'm a big scary gecko.